What if I told you there's a single waterway so important that if it were to close, it could bring the entire global economy to its knees? Well, this isn't some distant possibility. We're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. It's the artery for the world's economy, and it is under constant simmering threat. Take a look at this number, 21 million. That's how many barrels of oil are squeezed through this tiny channel every single day. Just to give you some perspective, that's way more oil than the entire United States uses in a day. It is a truly staggering amount of energy, and our whole way of life really depends on this one little gap staying open. And that's exactly why people call it the world's energy artery. It's not just another shipping lane, it's an absolute lifeline. So let's dig into what makes this specific waterway so critical for, well, all of us. Just let that sink in for a second. 1/5. A full 20% of the planet's entire liquid energy supply has to sail through this one strait. A problem here isn't just a local issue. No, it's a full-blown global catastrophe just waiting to happen. So you have to wonder, how on earth did one little sliver of water get this much power? Well, the answer, like it so often is in geopolitics, boils down to one simple, unchangeable thing. It's geography. This right here is what experts call a geopolitical choke point. And it's a pretty straightforward idea with absolutely massive consequences. If you control the narrow passage, you control everything that flows through it. And for the countries right there on its border, especially Iran, this geography gives them incredible leverage over the rest of the world. Okay, so just how narrow are we talking? At its tightest spot, the Strait of Hormuz is only 21 miles wide. That's basically the same width as the English Channel. Now, I want you to imagine you're the captain of a supertanker that's as long as 3 football fields, trying to navigate that gap, all while potentially hostile forces are watching from either side. Yeah, there is zero room for error. And this unique geography, it's the very core of Iran's military thinking. See, they know they can't go head-to-head with a superpower like the United States in a conventional naval battle, so they don't even try. Instead, they've really perfected this brilliant David versus Goliath strategy that's tailor-made for these waters. So how would they actually do it? How would a blockade really work? Well, it's this devastatingly effective 3-part plan. First, you mine the waters, basically turning the shipping lanes into a death trap. Second, you launch what are called swarm attacks, using dozens of small, fast, and heavily armed speedboats to just overwhelm a big ship's defenses. And third, you start firing coastal missiles from hidden launchers all along the shoreline. And here's the crazy part. This strategy actually turns a modern Navy's biggest strength into its greatest weakness. Think about a massive U.S. aircraft carrier. Out in the open ocean, it's a symbol of untouchable power, right? But you put it in these shallow, cramped waters, and suddenly it becomes this big, slow, and incredibly vulnerable target for exactly these kinds of attacks. It is quite literally a carrier's nightmare. So, we've seen how a blockade could happen. But what about the real-world consequences? What happens to you, to me, and to the global economy if that 20% of the world's oil just stops flowing? It would happen almost instantly. The moment a move is made to block the strait, you'd see absolute panic rip through the energy markets. The certainty of supply, which is the very foundation of our modern world, would just evaporate. The effect on prices would be immediate and brutal. Oil wouldn't just rise, it would skyrocket overnight. The price you pay at the pump would jump, shipping costs for every single product you buy would soar, and that would kick off massive global inflation and send stock markets into an absolute freefall. It's a domino effect, a devastating economic chain reaction. And while pretty much everyone on the planet would feel the pain, some countries are way more vulnerable than others. Take China, for example. A gigantic portion of their energy has to come through this one single strait. For Beijing, Iran's control over Hormuz isn't some abstract geopolitical game. It is a direct existential threat to their entire economy. And that brings us to what's happening right now. The situation in the strait isn't a simple standoff anymore. It's morphed into something much more complex, a kind of shadow war, with this constantly shifting balance of power between all the players involved. This is the high-stakes chess game being played out as we speak. You have the U.S. presence in the region, which is always changing. Tensions are constantly flaring up. And there's this delicate, dangerous dance between trying to talk things out diplomatically and posturing with military force. We are truly seeing a major shift in who holds the power over the world's most critical sea lanes. All of this leaves us with a huge, crucial question for our future. In a world that just seems to get more and more unpredictable, is our deep reliance on this one choke point a fatal flaw in the whole global system? And if it is, what's the plan B? The answer to that is going to define who holds power for the next century.